Welcome to Thieves' Cant, a tabletop gaming podcast with your hosts, Jeremy Shane and Chris White.
Welcome in, welcome back. Thieves' Cant, Tuesday, January 20th. I'm Jeremy Shane.
And I'm Chris White.
Glad to have you back once again. Thanks for listening, subscribing at thievescantcast, email thievescantcast@gmail.com. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday, which means we're doing a bit of a deep dive. It's a Lore Vault episode. I'm excited.
That's right.
You teased us yesterday. How did you phrase it? It's cold outside, but the blood is flowing, or?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while.
You said
something
about cold and blood. So I've been on pins and needles ever since the conclusion of yesterday's show.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know where you're about to take me.
Allow me to solve the mystery for you.
Okay.
Today, we're going to be talking about vampires.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. One of most people's favorites, I think. It's
No, just me.
Just you?
I'm special.
You own the vampires. They're mine.
You can have the sparkly ones. I'll give you those.
I'm not going to talk about sparkly vampires today. Everybody knows vampires. These are one of those monsters that are just at the forefront of pop culture, and I guess they always have been. What's interesting, of course, last week, or week before last, I guess, we talked about the Phoenix.
Right.
So with this one, it's kind of similar in that just as the Phoenix was sort of this universal idea that seemed to go across so many different cultures. We have the same thing with vampires. They just seem to pop up in different spots. There's always this undead creature that, in one form or another sort of sucks the life out of the living.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like the Phoenix, I would imagine that from culture to culture, there are clear similarities and clear differences.
Right.
In how they are portrayed.
Right. Most people are familiar with some elements of the vampire's legend, right? But they're really different in that, unlike other undead, you have your zombies, your wights, your skeletons, even your liches. None of them really fit into society. But the vampire, this is the undead that walks among us, right? This is the one that kind of looks like us. In fact, maybe looks a little more like we'd like to look. They're, oftentimes they can be portrayed as monstrous, like the Nosferatu, or they can be portrayed as beautiful and vibrant.
Yeah, well, and that fitting in among us that's essential to the vampire's survival.
It is. It is. And the vampire is interesting. This is a thinking GM's creature, right?
Not for me.
It's not for you. No, you own them. What are you talking about? And we'll get into it a little bit later. Okay, so I don't want to go into all that right now, but it's a fun creature to run. But I want to talk a little more about those legends, some of those things that we see, that idea of the wolf in sheep's clothing, this predator amongst the prey, right? And so every time you pass someone in a poorly lit street at night, you wonder, could they be a vampire? Or you see a face that looks like a loved one that you had before, could that be them? So, yeah, essentially undead, always the theme. Generally, they feast on blood, right? That's a pretty common theme. It's interesting, a lot of what is popular in gaming does seem to be based off of Hollywood representations, which, of course, are based off of historical ideas of these creatures. But it's sort of interesting. So there's always this association with bats. There's always this association with wolves. There's always this ability, oftentimes, to turn into a mist of some kind. These things continually pop up. But what's fascinating about the vampire to me is it's just as well known for its weaknesses as it is for its strengths. I mean, we know that they can charm and they can hypnotize people, and they're physically powerful, and of course they can bite people and suck their blood out and all these things. But we also know that a stake to the heart is not the best thing for them, right?
Or a rich Italian dinner. Maybe.
Yeah, little too much garlic, right? Running water, a big problem. The sunlight sensitivity, the link to their grave, all of these things, they're weaknesses. But they make this creature so much more interesting. So we can see that. One thing that I found in the research I was not aware of, this kind of blew my mind, but one of the legends about vampires, particularly like Eastern European vampires and things like that, was one of the ways, of course they can't be invited, they can't come into a house they're not invited to.
Sure.
That's a big part of it. But say you've got vampires lurking around. You could take a bag of rice or a bag of beans and throw it in front of your house, right? Because, this is so weird, they're obsessed with counting. And so, literally, the count from Sesame Street, right?
Yeah.
Is historically correct. If you do that, they literally have to sit there and count it, which to me was the most terrifying aspect of this creature. Because can you imagine you hear something slinking around your front door, right?
Okay.
And you don't dare open the door. Obviously.
No, I'm not opening it.
But then to just hear it out there. 1, 2, 3. Just counting like this like Gollum thing, right? Just,
like evil Rain Man.
Oh, yeah. And like just don't go outside. Like that thing's still out there counting beans, right? It's, I don't know. For some reason, that was really scary to me. But they have these things, these going on, these weaknesses. They have these strengths. And again, they're really well known. So, yeah, people will pick and choose which ones they choose to obey. Like they may ignore the garlic, or they may ignore, or the cross or the holy water, right? There's all those weaknesses too. And so it's all these things make it interesting, and obviously tying it into gaming even more so. I did want to mention, I talked about other cultures and how they have their versions of them. Have you ever heard of hopping vampires?
Hopping vampires? No. But anything that hops that I don't normally associate with hopping is terrifying to me, like a jumping spider.
Right.
Like a spider's one thing. I don't care for it, but if it jumps, I'm probably going to scream and faint.
No, you're 100% right, because these things are, I think, even scarier than European vampires.
Yeah.
These are like it's like a Chinese, and I'll butcher this, I'm sure. But
yes, please do.
Jiangxi.
That did sound pretty good, actually.
These things, the deal with them. See, and this is why I love vampire lore, right? I mean, you understand how the different ways a vampire could be made, right? Like a European vampire is more like you're bitten by a vampire and you become a slave to the vampire, or you reach your freedom, or whatever that may be. You become a vampire by being bitten, unless there's some special circumstance where you make some deal with a demon or something, right? It's a bad idea. But with these guys, the deal is it's somebody who died far away from home. The priest would actually cast this spell or ritual on these people, and so they would basically rise up and walk home. That was the idea. But sometimes it went wrong. And when it went wrong, like, you get these things. And they're bad news. Like, they have like green skin that's stretched way too tight, and like fangs and these crazy long black claws. And they always, for some reason, every illustration I saw of them, they have this like note attached to their foreheads. Like, I guess it's part of the ritual that created them or something.
Like a sigil?
Yeah. But they're really stiff. So that's why they hop. Because basically their legs don't bend well. So you'll just hear this, you can hear this thing hopping, right? Yeah. Which is kind of terrifying in the darkness. But like, their deal is they don't suck blood. They suck the air out of you. Like, that's what they're looking for. And so, like, one of the ways, like, if you're confronted with one of these things, you have to hold your breath. Because otherwise it's going to sense that life.
Right.
And it's not good.
Hop your way.
Yeah. You don't want to hop in your way, right? It's like this unrelenting thing. So, yeah, these
just picturing them on pogo sticks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. kind of scary though. Like I recommend look them up. Like look at the pictures, think about it, because these guys creep me out. So yeah, looking at these different ideas about these things, and again, it goes way out there, right? I mean, there's people that try to bring in biblical stuff and a lot of that that mythology that goes along, like the Jewish mythology that goes along with that, and all sorts of traditions that talk about vampires. From a gaming perspective, you can go back to really the roots of tabletop gaming. Even in the white box of D&D, there were vampires. So from the introduction of Dungeons and Dragons, vampires have been there. They've just always been a perfect foil for your heroes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an iconic creature, like whether or not this gaming hobby exists or not. So it was a natural fit to pull in that iconic creature from the start. Yeah,
it's a perfect fit. And of course, I mean, we'd have to talk about Vampire the Masquerade, obviously. Very successful franchise, and it's all revolves around this and those different clans of vampires. Now, I have limited experience with vampires, so I'm not going to dig into that.
It's like on my gaming bucket list. I would love to play Vampire with someone who knows what they're doing with the system. I'm intimidated by the amount of lore that I feel like I would need to run it properly.
Yeah.
You know, like I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah. No, I get it, and I feel the same way. It's hard to jump into, it seems like, because I would be so ignorant. And I don't know anybody that plays it, so that doesn't help either.
Right.
But, yeah, the vampires were there from the beginning. The idea always, these were like just these, of course, we're back in the time of alignments, right? Chaotic, evil, undead. But these aren't zombies. These aren't skeletons. These are thinking undead. And then all throughout the publication history, they appear through Dragon magazines. We see all sorts of variants, different settings have their own flavor. Again, we get examples of different races like elves and dwarves, illithid. They all have their own variants of the vampire.
Which kind of helps explain in my mind why, fourth edition, for example, players could play a vampire. It was a class.
And so that's kind of what we see through the editions. In third edition, second edition. I like a lot about the second edition vampire. I like the mechanics. Of course, you go back to older edition, you had level drain.
Yeah, that is so
It's
brutal.
wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. To me, the most brutal thing about level drain, aside from the fact that I'm losing levels forever, is the fact that I'm going to have to erase so much on this character sheet and keep up with it. Right? So I think even by second edition, if I'm not mistaken, we had a mechanic where basically that bite is just going to permanently reduce your hit point maximum. Way cleaner. I like it. And so, it's just this cumulative idea.
Right.
And it's sort of the opposite of the vampire, who is going to regenerate, 20 hit points or whatever per round. So it's a big threat, and it needs to be. When you get to a vampire lord, this should be a real problem. This is boss level stuff.
This is not some spawn.
Right.
This is the top of the pyramid.
Right. I mean, you get to, by 5th edition, these are like a challenge rating 13. And like we've talked before, 13's pretty high level campaign. Realistically, this could be your end boss.
Yeah.
Because a lot of campaigns don't make it that high. And so, but what's interesting about them is, for all those strengths, they have those weaknesses. And that's why I love vampires, because you can role play in a lot of ways this combat. You can think your way through this combat, by choosing the battlefield, by choosing the time, by choosing, what's going to be in play, what equipment are we bringing. If you're bringing vials of holy water and crosses and wooden stakes, you're setting yourselves up for a win.
Right. Well, I mean, and we see this in Stoker.
Right.
Right. I mean, this is how Dracula is conquered
right.
at the end. You've got your party of heroes who had done the legwork, pieced it all together,
right.
had the essential tools that they needed in the right place to make it happen.
Right. And so many times, a lot of these battles just turn to hit points versus hit points. Who can do the most damage in the amount of time. But this battle can go every way depending on how the players approach it. How their characters engage with that lore, what they can figure out is fact and what is fiction, right? Because not necessarily everything is going to be true.
Well, right, because you're dealing with an enemy that has been around for generations. And so the truth is twisted over years.
Right. So maybe the character, doesn't have that limitation. They have to be invited in a house, or maybe they do. Maybe they're bound by it. Maybe a mirror isn't a problem for this vampire. Or maybe it is. Or even asking yourself, why can't a vampire see themselves in a mirror? One of the theories is that the inner soul is what you're seeing in a mirror. The vampire doesn't have that. In the mechanical sense, in playing the game, this is a thinking GM's. That's why I said that earlier. This is their kind of monster because, first of all, they're very intelligent. They're old. They're experienced. But at the same time, they have these weaknesses that can be exploited, but, it shouldn't be too easy. And so you have all those things to consider. And then, of course, there's the role play aspect of vampires, which is a really interesting one. Side note, I did think it's interesting that all of the older editions of D&D put a heavy emphasis on the alignment of these things. It was always, these are agents of chaos and they are evil.
Yeah.
Like always very clear. I noticed by 5th edition, I don't know if it happened in 4th or 3rd or where that transition happened, but by 5th edition, they are lawful evil. So there was a change that happened there in their views. And I don't know.
Well, let me ask, because you're like the alignment guy. You're pro alignment. So how does that sit with you? Where do you think they should fall, or should they all fall under the same alignment?
Well, I think it's just a fundamental view on how these are perceived. I think now I would say they're viewed as the tyrants, these undead tyrants that are making their vampire spawn and ruling with an iron fist. It's much more Strahd von Zarovich.
And there's organization to it that chaos just doesn't match up too well.
Right. It's more underworld, right? Like this is an organized. It's almost like it can almost be like a mafia type of organization, I think in older editions the vampire was considered more of all of that was there, but they were a monster at the end of the day. Like they were a creature that disrupts. In fact, there was a lot of emphasis put on the fact that they are like nature hates them. Like they are very much like not a part of the ecosystem of life. And so I can see that difference. It's, in that perspective. And they're both interesting. But when you look at vampires, and really this is the last point I want to make when you're playing them, is understanding what they are, not on a physical level, but on I don't even want to say a spiritual level. I don't know what it would be, but what are their motivations? Is it just to feed? Well, it could be, but if you lived forever and you're not of an animal intelligence, if you're very intelligent,
right,
you're going to need something more than that, right? And that's usually what we see in vampires is excess, right? I mean, if we're being honest, when we think about sin, vampires just fit it, right?
They are the embodiment.
Right. The most twisted versions of it's no longer love, but it's this lust, this dark lust or this dark obsession or this desire for youthfulness. We see all these things there and it leads into it. You think about Strahd, right? What's Strahd's primary motivation? Tatiana, right? His brother's bride, right? He wanted her. And so he made, he made this deal with these dark powers. And of course, at the moment of the wedding, spoiler alert, he killed his brother and Tatiana threw herself off the castle walls and died, right? And that's when Strahd was revealed to be this monster. But what does Strahd deal with every day? He's haunted by her memory, right? Ravenloft makes Tatiana appear to him, or he'll hear a rumor of this beautiful woman that meets her description. He's constantly taunted by it. He sees it everywhere. And so it's these really dark obsessions that make vampires interesting. It's not necessarily like, most intelligent creatures, I desire gold. I know a dragon's motivation. It wants power and it wants gold, right? But for a vampire, this is something different.
Could be far more personal.
Exactly. And it's these twisted personal desires that can make them so interesting, so vile, so, repugnant, and yet at the same time, relatable. It's like there's a little bit of us in the vampire. Maybe it's twisted, maybe it's darker, but we can see ourselves in them. And that's what really makes them scary.
If you have thoughts on the vampire, running them as a game master, encountering them as a player, or maybe just as a reader or viewer of fiction, what are your favorite aspects of the vampire? Let us know in the comments. Of course, you can email thievescantcast@gmail.com. But a special thanks to you, Chris, today for that dive into the lore vault.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, this episode sucked. We will see you back tomorrow as we enter the Forge of Creation. Chris, we're playing some Draw Steel, and you've got a character that you want to tinker with. You want to make some adjustments to?
A little tinkering.
Okay, so it's a Draw Steel talent rebuild. That'll be for Wednesday, and we will catch you next time. It's been Thieves Can't. I'm Jeremy Shane.
And I'm Chris White.
So long.
Thank you for listening to Thieves Can't. Email thievescantcast@gmail.com.